Welcome to your very own deep dive into the past. We've got some really fascinating documents detailing your family history, and let me tell you, the Kreutz line is anything but ordinary.
Oh, really?
Get this. We're talking a journey that spans centuries and continents.
Wow.
Starting all the way back in 17th century Germany.
Okay.
And ending up right here in modern-day America.
That is amazing. It's really remarkable how your family's story intersects with major historical events. I mean, we're talking about ancestors who lived through the 30 Years' War, a transatlantic voyage on the ship Snow Rowand, and settling in Pennsylvania just as it was becoming the melting pot of a new nation.
Yeah.
It's almost like holding a mirror to history, but with a deeply personal reflection.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Bring those names and days to life.
Yeah.
We're going to uncover the challenges your ancestors faced,
Yeah.
the world they inhabited, and the decisions they made that ultimately led to you.
So buckle up, because we're about to embark on a genealogical adventure.
Okay, let's set the stage. Imagine 17th century Freudenberg, Germany. So a small town nestled in rolling hills, maybe with a bustling market square and those charming timber-framed houses you see in storybooks.
Right.
And right in the heart of it all is your 13th great-grandfather, Conrad Creutz, born in the year 1600. Now, for those who aren't genealogy buffs, that means he's your great-grandfather 13 times. It's a direct lineage stretching back over 400 years.
To put it into perspective, that's going back to a time when Shakespeare's plays were still brand new.
Wow.
And the first permanent English settlement in America at Jamestown was just being established. It's a glimpse into a world on the cusp of major transformations.
So Conrad's life offers us a window into rural German life in the 17th century. We can picture him working the land, attending the Lutheran church, and experiencing a world where farming was the backbone of society. But hold on, because things were about to get a lot more complicated.
Right, because in 1620, amidst those seemingly peaceful routines, Conrad marries Amalia Nielsdatter. And this isn't just a random date. This is right as the 30 Years' War begins to engulf Europe.
Wow.
Imagine starting your married life with the shadow of such a devastating conflict looming over everything.
This wasn't just some distant skirmish, was it?
Absolutely not. The 30 Years' War was a brutal conflict that ravaged the European landscape, leading to widespread famine, disease, and displacement. And Freudenberg, located in Westphalia, was right in the thick of it. Your family tree actually mentions food shortages, forced labor, and the constant threat of violence.
Wow.
Talk about a harsh reality.
Yo, Conrad and Amalia weren't just starting a family, they were starting a family in a war zone. I wondered, does their marriage tell us anything about life during wartime?
Well, marriages in that era were often more than just romantic unions.
Right.
They were strategic alliances, ways to strengthen communities, especially after periods of conflict and instability. It's almost like a microcosm of society trying to rebuild itself, one marriage at a time.
It speaks to a level of resilience and hope, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Choosing to build a future together, even when the present is so uncertain.
And that brings us to their son, Rurik Creutz, your 12th great-grandfather, born in 1622. His life represents a fascinating transition from wartime to a period of, hopefully, rebuilding and recovery.
It must have been a strange time to grow up, carrying the weight of those wartime years, but also looking ahead to a more peaceful future.
And in 1643, Rurik marries Elizabeth Nuss.
Okay.
Again, this might have been as much about fortifying community ties as it was about love. Remember, communities were rebuilding, and these marriages were a way to create stability and support.
This is like a domino effect, each generation laying the groundwork for the next.
Interestingly, the sources suggest a possible connection to Amberg-Sulzbach in Bavaria, where Rurik passed away in 1669. This could indicate family ties or even migration patterns within Germany during this period. It's like a little breadcrumb trail hinting at stories yet to be uncovered.
Okay, so we've got resilience, rebuilding, and maybe even a dash of mystery. What happens next?
We move to the next generation, to Johann Deus Creutz, born around 1644. He remains in Freudenberg and marries Anna Maria Motz in 1670. Now, their lives offer a glimpse into a community that's slowly healing and finding its footing after the devastation of the war.
This is where the Peace of Westphalia comes in, right? That was a major turning point, ending the 30 Years' War and ushering in a new era in Europe.
Exactly. By this point, the war is over, and there's a sense of maybe not complete peace, but at least more stability. Johann's life likely revolved around the traditional ways of life, farming, participating in the Lutheran church, and raising his family within a close-knit community.
It's like they're picking up the pieces, carrying on the traditions of their ancestors, and laying the foundation for the generations to come.
But the story doesn't stay in Freudenberg forever.
Oh.
Get ready for a plot twist, because with the next generation, there's a major shift in location. Johannes Heinrich Creutz, born in 1688, is not born in Freudenberg, but in the canton of Uri, Switzerland.
Hold on, Switzerland. We're talking mountains, alpine meadows, yodeling. What prompted this move across borders? It's like suddenly switching from a black forest cake to fondue.
That's a great question. It's one of those historical mysteries that makes genealogy so fascinating. We know this was the late 17th century, a time of ongoing religious tensions in Europe, economic hardships in many regions, and evolving political landscapes. Perhaps they were seeking better opportunities, escaping persecution, or maybe even following a family connection we haven't uncovered yet. It's a turning point that raises all sorts of questions.
And to add another layer to the intrigue, Johannes Heinrich doesn't just marry a local Swiss girl. He finds love with Anna Margrethe Timmerman, who was born in Leeuwarden in the Netherlands. Talk about an international romance.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of Europe, even back then. These regions, though separated by borders, were linked by trade routes, religious networks, and cultural exchanges. It's a reminder that history is rarely isolated.
Yeah.
It's a web of interconnected stories.
So we have Johannes Heinrich, born in Switzerland, marrying Anna Margrethe from the Netherlands. Where does this transnational couple end up putting down roots?
They settle in the Palatinate region of Germany. And this is significant because the Palatinate, particularly the Rhineland area where they likely lived, was recovering from yet another conflict, the War of the Austrian Succession.
It seems like every generation in your family has faced the aftermath of some major upheaval.
It's almost like they're drawn to these places that are in transition, rebuilding, forging new identities.
Yeah.
And the Palatinate at that time was a mix of German-speaking communities, a region trying to rebuild its economy and infrastructure, and, importantly, it was experiencing a growing sense of unrest as people sought better opportunities. This is actually the backdrop for a major historical trend, a wave of German emigration to America.
This is where things start to feel familiar.
Yes.
So are we about to set sail across the Atlantic?
We are. Johannes Heinrich and Anna Margrethe decide to take a leap of faith, leaving behind everything they know for the promise of a new life in a land that, to them, must have seemed almost mythical.
What a courageous decision. I can only imagine the mix of emotions they must have felt.
In 1750, they board the ship Snow Rowand in Rotterdam, bound for Philadelphia. Imagine weeks, maybe even months, at sea, crammed into a wooden vessel, facing storms, disease, and the constant uncertainty of the journey. It must have been both terrifying and exhilarating.
It's mind-boggling to think about what they left behind and what they hoped to find. And this is where your family's story becomes interwoven with the story of America.
They arrive in Philadelphia on September 29, 1753. Think about what Philadelphia was like then. A bustling port city filled with immigrants from all over Europe and at the cusp of major changes. The American colonies are starting to chafe under British rule, tensions are rising, and the seeds of revolution are being sown.
Wow, to arrive at such a pivotal moment in history, it's like stepping onto a stage where the drama is about to unfold.
They settle first in Northampton County, Pennsylvania, which later becomes Lehigh County. It's a region where many German-speaking immigrants are creating communities, holding onto their traditions while forging a new life in this unfamiliar land.
I can almost picture them, arriving with their hopes and dreams, their skills and traditions, and trying to make sense of this new world. It must have been a whirlwind of change.
And it's here that we encounter a crucial name change. Remember Johannes Heinrich Creutz, his son, born in 1743, transitions to the more Americanized name of John George Creutz?
Well,
It's like a symbolic shedding of the old world identity and a stepping into the new.
it's fascinating how names can reflect these cultural shifts, these moments of transition and reinvention. It's almost like renaming yourself for a new chapter in life.
And John George Creutz marries Anne Marie Emmerich in 1779 at Heidelberg Church in Slatington, Pennsylvania. This detail tells us a lot about the community they were building. German Reformed Protestantism was a cornerstone of these immigrant communities, providing not just spiritual guidance, but also a social network, a sense of belonging in a new land.
It's like that church becomes a symbol of both their faith and their community, a place to connect with others who share their language and traditions.
And remember, this is all happening during the American Revolutionary War.
Right.
They're experiencing the birth pangs of a nation right there in Pennsylvania.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
They went from experiencing the aftermath of European wars to witnessing the birth of a new nation. It's almost like being present at two pivotal moments in history on opposite sides of the Atlantic.
John George Creutz settles in North Whitehall Township. He's a farmer like many of his ancestors, but now he's farming American soil, contributing to the growth of a new nation. It's a continuation of that family tradition, but on a whole new frontier.
And it seems like this spirit of moving, of seeking new opportunities, is deeply ingrained in your family's DNA, because the journey doesn't end there, does it?
It certainly doesn't.
Yeah.
It seems like the desire for something more, something better, is woven into the very fabric of their story. But let's take a pause here and pick up the story in part 2 of our deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, literally, from a small German town to the burgeoning American colonies. But there's so much more to uncover, more stories to unravel, and we'll do that when we return.
Okay.
So, when we left off, we were talking about John George Creutz, a farmer, building a life in North Whitehall Township during the turbulent years of the American Revolution. It seems fitting, doesn't it? A family that had weathered so much upheaval in Europe now finding themselves at the heart of a new nation's struggle for independence.
It really makes you wonder what it must have been like for them. Were they caught up in the fervor of the revolution, or were they more focused on simply carving out a life for themselves amidst all the chaos?
It's a great question. And unfortunately, the historical records don't always offer those intimate details, but we can imagine that their lives were deeply intertwined with the events of the time. Perhaps they provided supplies to the Continental Army, or maybe they even witnessed skirmishes between British and American forces. It was a time of uncertainty and change, but also a time of incredible opportunity for those willing to embrace the risks.
And it seems like that spirit of risk-taking and resilience is a recurring theme in your family's story. So where do we go from Revolutionary-era Pennsylvania? Does the family stay put, or are those westward winds calling again?
Well, let's track the next generation. We move on to John George Creutz, born in 1780, who marries Eva Elizabeth Lintz in 1797. And here's where we see that westward pull once again influencing the family's path. Their son, John Adam Creutz, born in 1811, he embodies the spirit of westward expansion that defined 19th century America.
Okay, so we're heading out of Pennsylvania. The name has also shifted a bit from Creutz to Creutz. It's like the family is literally and figuratively transforming as it moves westward. Where does John Adam end up?
Westward to Jefferson County, Nebraska. John Adam Creutz becomes part of that wave of pioneers who are drawn to the vast open spaces of the American frontier, fueled by the promise of new beginnings, and perhaps a bit of that restless spirit we've been talking about.
Jefferson County, Nebraska, in the early 1800s. Now that's a far cry from the rolling hills of Freudenberg. I can almost picture it. Covered wagons, crossing the plains, encountering indigenous communities, facing harsh conditions, and yet driven by this relentless pursuit of something more. It must have taken incredible courage and determination.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about seeking land or economic opportunity. It was also about forging a new identity, testing the limits of what was possible. John Adam married Anna Margaret Strauss, a woman born in Pennsylvania, but who, like him, was drawn to the frontier. It's as if the spirit of exploration and risk-taking is a shared inheritance, passed down through generations.
It's a reminder that history isn't just about abstract events. It's about people making choices, taking risks, and shaping their own destinies. So they're building a life in Nebraska, a world away from where their ancestors started. What happens next in this ever-evolving family saga?
Well, with each generation, the story takes on new dimensions. We follow John Adam and Anna Margaret's son, George Stroff Creutz, born in 1828. He marries Sarah Caroline Andrews in Ohio, but by the 1860s, they've moved to Beatrice, Nebraska, right in the midst of the American Civil War.
Wow, so they're right in the heart of one of the most tumultuous periods in American history. A nation literally divided. Beatrice, at that time, was still a frontier town, right on the edge of the settled world. It must have been an intense experience living through such a pivotal moment in American history. Did their lives offer any clues about how people navigated those divided loyalties and the upheaval of the war?
Unfortunately, the documents don't provide specifics on their personal experiences during the Civil War, but we can look at Beatrice as a microcosm of the larger national struggle. It was a town where people from different backgrounds and beliefs were trying to build a community while the country was tearing itself apart.
It makes you think about how those larger historical forces must have reverberated through their daily lives. Imagine the conversations, the anxieties, the hopes and fears of that time. It's a powerful reminder that history isn't just dates and battles. It's also about the human stories that played out amidst those larger events.
Exactly. And those human stories often reveal the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity to adapt and rebuild, even in the face of tremendous challenges.
And resilience certainly seems to be a defining characteristic of your family. So we've got pioneers, Civil War-era Nebraska, this constant westward movement. What's the next chapter?
The journey continues, of course. We move on to Harrison Wesley Kreutz, born in 1853. Now, this is where we encounter another fascinating twist in the story. Harrison wasn't born in Nebraska, but in Greenfield, Ohio.
Wait, back to Ohio. Did the family make a U-turn? It seems like they've been on this steady westward trajectory for a couple of generations.
It's more of a zigzag pattern, a reminder that migration wasn't always a straight line. People moved for various reasons, economic opportunities, family ties, maybe even a sense of adventure or yearning for familiar landscapes. We don't have the specifics on why Harrison's parents returned to Ohio, but it adds another layer of complexity to their story.
It's a good reminder that real life rarely follows a straight path. There are always twists and turns, unexpected detours that ultimately shape our journey. So, does the family stay in Ohio, or do they eventually make their way back out west?
Well, hold on tight, because the story takes us back out west. Harrison Wesley Kreutz and his wife, Amelia Ann Scheinflue, end up in Yuma County, Colorado. And this brings us right into the late 19th century, a time of rapid change and growth in the American West.
Colorado in the late 1800s. Now, that's what I call the Wild West. I'm picturing gold rushes, cowboys, the expansion of the railroads, and a landscape that was both breathtaking and unforgiving. What can you tell us about Yuma County at that time? Was it a boomtown, a farming community, or something else entirely?
Yuma County was definitely on the edge of the frontier at that time. It was primarily a ranching and farming community with settlers drawn to the wide open spaces and the chance to build a life from scratch. It was also a time of intense competition for resources, especially water, and conflicts with indigenous communities were not uncommon.
It sounds like a place where resilience and adaptability were essential for survival. So Harrison and Amelia are raising a family in this rugged Colorado landscape. What happens next? Do they stay put, or does that family wanderlust strike again?
Let's move on to the next generation and find out. Harrison and Amelia's son, Alfred Louis Kreutz, born in 1898. He brings us into the 20th century, and as we enter a new century, the story takes on a more global dimension. Remember, this is the era leading up to World War I, a conflict that would draw the United States onto the world stage and have a profound impact on families across the nation.
World War I, that's a turning point, not just for the world, but also for your family's story. It makes you think about the ripple effect of history, how those global events touch even the most seemingly remote corners of the world.
And Alfred Louis Kreutz is directly impacted by these events. He serves in World War I, a testament to how deeply connected even frontier families were to the events shaping the world. Imagine the impact of this war on a family that had already witnessed so much change and upheaval, from the rolling hills of Germany to the vast plains of Nebraska and the rugged landscapes of Colorado.
It's like each generation has been shaped by these defining historical moments, whether it's war, westward expansion, or the birth of a nation. And now, with World War I, the story expands beyond national borders, connecting them to a global conflict. It's a powerful reminder that even the most personal stories are intertwined with the larger currents of history.
Precisely. And those historical currents often carry individuals along on journeys they could never have anticipated. After the war, Alfred Louis Kreutz marries Myrtle Sadie Malone. They have several children, including your great-grandmother, Lucille Lewis Kreutz, born in 1926 in Colorado.
Lucille. Now, this is where the family history becomes truly personal, a direct link to you. It must be fascinating to imagine her life, knowing that she was a product of this incredible journey that we've been tracing back through the centuries. What can you tell us about Lucille's early life? What was it like growing up in Colorado in the 1920s and 30s?
Lucille's life spans a period of incredible change and challenge in American history. She experienced the Roaring '20s, witnessed the devastating effects of the Great Depression, and lived through the tumultuous years of World War II. Her life reflects the resilience and adaptability that we've seen in previous generations, but now it's playing out against the backdrop of modern America. Imagine the cultural shifts, the technological advancements, the social and political upheavals that she witnessed during her lifetime.
It's like her story becomes a bridge between the past that we've been exploring and the present that we inhabit. She's a living link to those ancestors who crossed oceans, settled frontiers, and built lives amidst those major historical events.
And in 1937, Lucille marries Thurlow Lee Bud Jones in California. They start a family, and in 1938, your grandmother, Barbara Jean Jones, is born in Los Angeles.
California.
Yeah.
From the mountains of Colorado to the bustling metropolis of Los Angeles. Talk about a change of scenery. It's like the family story has come full circle, from the small towns of Germany to the sprawling cities of America. What prompted this move to California? Was it the lure of Hollywood, the promise of new opportunities, or something else entirely?
That's a fascinating question. Unfortunately, the documents don't offer specific details about their motivations for moving to California, but we can look at the broader context of the time. The 1930s was a period of significant migration within the United States as people sought relief from the Dust Bowl and economic hardship brought on by the Great Depression. California, with its burgeoning industries and promise of a better life, drew people from all over the country.
It's almost like a continuation of that westward expansion that we've seen throughout your family's history. But now it's driven by different forces, economic opportunity, the allure of a new frontier within their own country. It's a reminder that even as the world changes, certain patterns persist, shaped by the human desire for a better life.
Absolutely. And as we delve deeper into Lucille's life and the lives of her descendants, we'll see how those patterns continue to play out against the backdrop of the 20th and 21st centuries. But for now, let's pause here and pick up the thread of this remarkable story in part 3 of our deep dive. Okay, so we've journeyed with your family from the quaint towns of 17th century Germany all the way to the sun-drenched streets of 20th century Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind tour through time, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
We've seen how their lives were shaped by wars, migration, and the constant pursuit of something better.
Each generation has faced its own set of challenges, and yet they've shown incredible resilience, adaptability, and a remarkable capacity for reinvention.
And we've ended up in California with your grandmother, Barbara Jean Jones, born in 1938, right in the heart of Hollywood's golden age.
It's almost as if their journey has mirrored the trajectory of Western civilization itself.
Right.
From the old world to the new, from rural communities to bustling cities.
And along the way, they've witnessed some of the most pivotal moments in history. The 30 Years' War, the birth of a nation, westward expansion, the Great Depression, World War I. And now, with Barbara Jean's generation, they're about to experience the cultural and technological upheavals of the mid-20th century.
Imagine her childhood would have been shaped by the radio, the rise of cinema, and perhaps even the first glimpses of television.
Wow.
And as she came of age, she would witness the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s, the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, a time of profound social and political change.
It's amazing to think about how those historical events must have shaped her worldview, her values, her sense of what's possible. And it's a reminder that even seemingly ordinary lives are woven into the fabric of history.
Exactly. And as we bring this deep dive to a close, it's worth reflecting on what we've learned from your family's story. It's a story that speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, the enduring power of family ties, and the constant yearning for a better life.
It's also a reminder that history isn't just about abstract events or famous figures. It's about real people making choices, taking risks, and leaving their mark on the world, even if it's just a small ripple in the grand scheme of things.
And your family's story is a testament to the interconnectedness of our lives across time and continents. Think about it. Konrad Kreutz, a farmer in 17th century Germany, is directly connected to you living in the 21st century.
It's a lineage that spans over 400 years in 2 continents, a bridge across generations, united by blood and shaped by the forces of history.
And it's a journey that doesn't end here. You are a part of this ongoing narrative, and your choices, your actions will shape the future of this family line.
Wow.
You are the next chapter in this remarkable saga.
It's almost like receiving a torch from those who came before us, a responsibility to carry their legacy forward and to create our own stories that will one day be part of history.
So what are the key takeaways from this deep dive into your family's past? What will you carry with you as you move forward in your own life?
Well, for me, it's a sense of gratitude for those who came before us, for their courage, their resilience, their unwavering determination to create a better life for their descendants. It's also a sense of responsibility to honor their legacy by living a life that's meaningful and purposeful.
Beautifully said. And I would add a sense of wonder and curiosity. This deep dive has only scratched the surface of your family history. There are countless stories yet to be uncovered, mysteries to be solved, and connections to be made.
That's right. This is just the beginning. There are local historical societies to visit, online genealogy databases to explore, and perhaps even distant relatives to connect with. It's an invitation to continue the journey, to delve deeper into the past, and to discover the hidden treasures that await.
And remember, every family has a story to tell, so go out there, explore, discover, and share the rich tapestry of your own family's history. It's a gift that keeps on giving, connecting us to the past, enriching our present, and inspiring us for the future.
That's it for our deep dive into the Kreutz family saga. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through time. We hope you've enjoyed the ride, and we encourage you to continue exploring your own family's past.
Until next time, keep digging, keep questioning, keep discovering the fascinating stories that connect us all.